And God said, Behold, I have given you every herb-bearing seed. To you it shall be for food. Genesis 1:29. Man did eat angels' food. He sent them meat to the full. Psalm 78:25. Everyday Manna with Lisa.
Hi everybody, and welcome to Everyday Manna. Today we are going to make a comfort dish. We're going to make a chicken pot pie-ish dish. We're going to make the filling that I make for a chicken pot pie, but instead of doing the roll-out crust, we're going to top it with biscuits, which is absolutely delicious. Then we're going to have, because it's kind of a meal in one, we're going to have on the side a Caesar salad, but we're going to make a sun-dried tomato dressing, which is fabulous. And then we're going to have a little bit of a slash beverage dessert. We are going to make coffee floats. So let's get started on the pot pie dish. Now, if you have leftover chicken, or a rotisserie chicken or something like that, pre-cooked chicken, use about 2 cups of that. If you don't, then you're going to need to cook some chicken. So I have here just some chicken tenders, and I've got a skillet here that I have preheated. And I'm going to add just a little bit. I'm going to use olive oil because that's what's right there, but you could use canola oil or vegetable oil. You don't want to brown this. You just want to cook it to where it loses its, rawness. So we're just going to put this in a skillet. These are tenders that I have cut into bite-sized pieces. But again, if you have leftover chicken, then by all means use the leftover chicken. Let's just get that out in one layer. This is going to cook very, very quickly. You could poach it if you wanted to, but I'm just going to lightly saute it. I don't want it to be brown. I just want it to be cooked. So let's let that go for just a minute. Then I have on this baking sheet 1 can of the 10 count biscuits. Now, I'm going to pre-bake these to where they're almost done. I did one when I was first developing this recipe a couple of years ago. I tried just putting the raw biscuits on the filling and putting it in the oven. And the tops of the biscuits got beautifully done, but the bottoms didn't. So you want to make sure that you pre-cook your biscuits. So let's put this, and you just want to do it whatever your package directions indicate. Mine is 400 degrees for about 12 minutes or so. So let's watch our clock, and in about 12 minutes we'll get those out. And we're just going to top our chicken filling with those biscuits. And it's really good. I love pot pies of any kind. I love turkey pot pie, and I always make turkey pot pie with my leftover turkey after Thanksgiving, or really any time I cook turkey, because I don't relegate turkey just to Thanksgiving. It's a wonderful meal. So I cook them, 2 or 3 times a year. I buy them at Thanksgiving when they go on sale, and they keep in your freezer for like a year. So get them while they're on sale, because I can get at least 3 meals out of a turkey. I get, of course, the turkey, and then the leftovers I make. Austin loves the soup that I make, and I make that soup, and I always make like a turkey pot pie. Or chicken, if you do chicken. And when I do roast whole chickens at home, which is one of our favorite meals, I always do 2. Number 1, because I'm feeding teenage boys, but then I've got leftovers that I can do this dish the next day. So that's a good tip for you when you're cooking. Think about your week. And one of these days I'm going to do a program where I'm going to show you how I do my meal planning at home. But think about your week and plan those leftovers so that you can make other dishes. And this is a wonderful use for that. Now, I have 1 onion that while that's cooking, I'm going to go ahead and dice this onion. And this is something that you can have ahead too. A lot of times, if I know that I have a particularly busy week, I do my meal planning generally on Sunday afternoon. And then I think about my week, and if I need to go ahead and get my onions chopped or my vegetables chopped up, I do that and just put them in little Ziploc baggies and they stay, perfectly fine. It's kind of like a meal kit sort of thought process. So this is one of those things that you can totally do ahead if you need to. I'm just cutting this into a smallish dice. This is a pretty good size onion. I don't know that I need it all. I think I'm only going to use half this onion. And I'll save this for another dish because I don't want a whole bunch of onions. And some of the things that you're going to need for this dish is a bag of just frozen vegetables, just mixed vegetables, some evaporated milk, some chicken stock, and some thyme and some butter. And I'm going to show you how we're going to get all this together in just a minute. The chicken is coming along nicely. You could do this very same recipe with leftover pot roast too. Maybe you cooked a roast and you've got some leftover beef. Just substitute the chicken with beef. If you wanted to make this a beef pot pie dish, you could do that. And I do that sometimes too. Again, it's about stretching those meals. Or you can do what I'm doing and get some chicken and cook it fresh for the dish. It's worth it just to have, it's delicious. So if you don't have any leftovers, just get some chicken tenders and cook them like I am. Now, as you can see in the skillet, I am not browning this. I don't want it brown. It's okay if it gets a little bit of color. I really just want to cook the chicken through. So I went ahead and cut them, the tenders, into bite-sized pieces because you want that. And a good way to see if it's done is just kind of take your spatula. I love these little wooden utensils. And kind of cut through a piece to see if it's done. And this is not quite done. You do want to go ahead and cook it through at this stage because this is once you've got the chicken cooked, this meal comes together very, very quickly. So you don't want to have any raw chicken. You do want to make sure that it is all the way cooked through. And so that's really one of the reasons why leftovers are so good. Just going to let this go for just a minute. Don't stir it around too much, because it can't cook if you're constantly moving it. You want it to come in contact with that heat. So I'm going to take a quick break. I'm just going to let that finish cooking, and I'm going to put it in this bowl right here, and that's all I'm going to do. And when I come back, we'll start the base for the pot pie. I'll be back in just a second. All right, now our chicken is cooked and all I did was put it in this bowl. I'm just gonna kind of let it set. In that very same pan, I'm gonna melt some butter, half a stick of butter or 4 tablespoons. And I'm also gonna add a little bit of oil to that. That raises the temperature, cooking temperature or burning temperature of the butter so that it doesn't burn, because I don't want it to burn. But I want the flavor of butter, and that's a good hint to know because butter has a very low cooking temperature. But if you add the oil to it, it does help. Now you still can't, deep fry in it, but you can certainly do what I'm going to do, which is saute. And we're going to put that onion in there, and we're going to cook the onion until it's just barely cooked through, translucent. And we're also going to make a roux in the butter mixture, which will thicken our pot pie filling. Remember, you've got your biscuits in the oven, so you need to check those after about 12 or 13 minutes. Just read your package direction. Make sure when you buy your biscuits, or you can make them homemade if you want to, that you don't get the flavored ones. I'm seeing in the grocery store many more flavors, like the cinnamony flavored or different kinds of biscuits, and you don't want that. You want just plain Southern style, flaky, that kind of thing. Buttermilk. I'm adding a little salt, and I'm going to add a little bit of pepper to this dish. And you just want to cook the onions until they are just translucent, which they're about there, really. And then what we're going to do is add some flour, about 1/3 cup or so. And you just want to kind of sprinkle it over top of the onion mixture. I don't take the onions out because it works just fine with them in there. And you want to stir that around, and what's going to happen is the flour is going to absorb the fats in the butter and the oil, and you want it dry. So if you need to have a little tiny bit more flour in there, that's fine. I'm using about 1/3 cup or so. I'm going to add just a touch more because it's still kind of liquidy, and I don't want that. I want it to be dry. This is called a roux, R-O-U-X. And this is the basis for so many types of gravies and sauces. Now, if you were making gravy, like biscuit gravy, you know, for biscuits and gravy, or if I was making country fried steak and wanted gravy, I would let this cook until that flour turned golden brown. But I don't want that for this particular dish. So you only want to cook this for about a minute, just to kind of get rid of that raw flour flavoring. We've made roux on this program before, making gravy, so you know what I'm talking about if you've seen that program. So that's good. I don't want it to go any further, so that's plenty enough flour. Now what I'm going to do is add, I like evaporated milk. I've got 1 can of evaporated milk, and I'm going to slowly add that. Don't dump it all in at once, because what will happen is your flour will clump up. But if you do it slowly and stir it, either with a spoon or a whisk, it will loosen up and do exactly what you want. This is not all the liquid we're going to add, but I like evaporated milk. If you don't have evaporated milk, you can use milk, just plain, you know, milk that you have in the refrigerator, or half and half, or even heavy cream if you really wanted to richen it up. But I've got flour all over my stove. I like evaporated milk. I use it for so many different things. I use it for mashed potatoes. Let me wipe this up. Gravies. So in my home, evaporated milk is a pantry staple. You see how that's still very thick? That's what you want. Now we're going to add some chicken stock. And you've got the flour mixture loosened up, so you can add, you know, your stock. I've got a box, you know, all at once, and then lightly whisk it in there. If you have a whisk, or you can use your spoon, whatever you have. Turn it down to simmer. And we're just going to let that come up to a bubble and see where we are on thickness before we add anything else. I am going to add my thyme, though. I'm going to add 1 teaspoon of dried thyme. If you don't have any dried thyme and you've got maybe some sage or some poultry seasoning, that would be fine. Now, you see how this is kind of thickened some? That's what you want, because you're making, in essence, you're making the gravy for the pot pie. I'm going to add just a little bit more chicken stock because that is going to continue to thicken. I'm going to add my chicken back in, and I'm going to add 1 bag of frozen mixed vegetables that are almost thawed, not quite thawed through, but that's okay because they're going to cook in this. And that's it, except for your biscuits. You could add, if you wanted to pre-cook some potatoes that you've diced fine, you could absolutely add some cooked potatoes to this. And sometimes I do, and sometimes I don't. It just depends. But that's all there is to that. Now, we're just going to put the cover on that and let it set and simmer on low for about you know, 10 to 15 minutes or so, just till those vegetables cook through and all the flavors have a chance to blend together. I'm just gonna clean up, take a quick break, check my biscuits, and when I come back, we're gonna make our salad dressing and our wonderful little dessert. I'll be back in just a minute. All right, now our biscuits are done. Our wonderful chicken filling is done. Look at that, how good that looks. Oh, always taste it for seasoning to make sure you don't need to add any more salt. And I did taste it, and it doesn't need another thing. Now, I like to go ahead and place my biscuits on top because that kind of softens that bottom just a little bit. And I like that for this particular dish. So I just place my biscuits right on top. My heat is off because it's completely cooked through. Now you saw me do this. I mean, it's not difficult at all. And I just let that set. My eye is off. So there you go. There's your chicken dish done. Now let's get started on our side dish. I have here just some romaine lettuce, just some whole heads of romaine that have been washed. And you can either do this like in a big serving platter and have like 2 full heads, or you can do it in little individual bowls, whichever you like. Now we're taking our cue from a Caesar salad. And a Caesar salad typically has romaine lettuce, some shredded Parmesan cheese, which I'm gonna put right there on top, and then the traditional salad dressing. But now we're not gonna make the traditional Caesar dressing. We're gonna make a sun-dried tomato dressing. And these are just some purchased croutons, or you can make your own. Any flavor you like. These are just the garlic and Romano cheese flavored that we like. And then we're gonna make our dressing. Now, you need a blender. And in the blender, we're gonna put about 1/2 cup of olive oil. Just dump it all in there at one time is fine. A little bit of salt and pepper, not too much. Maybe 1/2 teaspoon of salt or pepper and about 1 teaspoon of salt. Some red wine vinegar, and then here's the star ingredient. In your grocery store, and you might have to look in a couple of different places for it, but you want sun-dried tomatoes. I like the ones that are packed in olive oil. Now, if you can't find the sun-dried tomatoes in olive oil, and these particular ones are already cut into julienne strips, but if you can't find them in the olive oil, which I can't imagine that you wouldn't, you might have to look 2 or 3 different places in your grocery store, usually either with the canned tomatoes or with the spaghetti sauces, where they sell the spaghetti sauce, many times up on the top shelf of any grocery store. That seems to be where they're located. They will be with that, where the pastas and the pasta sauces are, or with the pickles and the olives and that kind of thing. Sometimes I found them in any one of those 3 places. If you can't find the ones that are in oil, or maybe you don't want to use the ones that are in oil, and you have the dried ones that have to be reconstituted, then you need to take those. You want about 1/2 cup, and put boiling water over them and let them set for, maybe 5 or 10 minutes, and then pour off the water and then chop your sun-dried tomatoes. Either one will work. I just happen to prefer the ones in the oil. And you want about 1/2 cup, and it's perfectly fine to get some of that oil with it because that oil is flavored. So it's fine, because you're using olive oil in here anyway. And then put your lid on, and then you want to pulse this. So this is loud, so pardon me here, but we're going to let it go till it's good and creamy. We'll take it just a second. And the blender emulsifies it for you. Oh, so good. And then I want to see how I am. I think I need a little tiny bit more oil. So let's add just a little more olive oil and just maybe a splash more vinegar. Because I really kind of like my dressings vinegary. If you don't like them quite so vinegary, then you won't want to add more vinegar, but I like mine really sharp. This is where you really can customize it. So in total, that's about probably 5 tablespoons of red wine vinegar and about 3/4 of a cup of olive oil. Hold on here. And that'll loosen it up too, so it's not quite so thick. And that's it. That's all you need to do. And then what you want to do is pour some of it right over top of your wonderful salad. You will still have the little chunks of the tomato, but that's perfectly fine. It won't puree totally, but that's okay. And if you don't use all of this in one setting, you can put it in a jar and keep it in your refrigerator for a few days. But I promise you, once you taste it, you're going to want to have it. It's also really good brushed over vegetables. Or you can make this dressing, here's another recipe for you, and toss hot cooked pasta, maybe either, either spaghetti or a short tubular pasta like penne or rigatoni or something like that. Cook it, drain it, and then toss it with this, and it's fabulous as a dressing for your pastas too. Either way, it's delicious. And there you go, a quick, easy homemade salad dressing for your own personalized Caesar salad. Now let's serve up our chicken. Oh, this is so good. This is comfort food. And just take a spoon and get a couple of biscuits and plenty of that wonderful pot pie mixture on the bottom. And there you go. You could, if you wanted to, put this in individual little crocks and serve it that way. But I just like to serve it just like that. Now, for dessert, anybody that knows me knows I love coffee. So anytime that I can get coffee in a recipe, I'm going to do it. I absolutely adore coffee. Always have. And I like my coffee perked. I had somebody the other morning, I woke up and my sweet husband had made my coffee, which he does many, many mornings, but he had also put me a sweet little note by my coffee cup and my coffee. And so I posted that on, I don't remember if it was Instagram or Facebook, but one of them. And somebody commented that they didn't know that they still made percolators. Well, they do still make percolators. Usually I find them at mass retailers where they sell the coffee pots, but generally they're on the bottom shelf because they don't sell as many of them. Once you've had perked coffee, I personally don't want drip coffee. I like perked coffee. So get yourself a percolator. And then that, I wasn't telling you what I was doing. That's coffee ice cream. If you've never had coffee ice cream, you need to try it. If you don't want to use coffee ice cream, you can use like vanilla bean ice cream, but I like the coffee ice cream. And then take fresh hot coffee and put over top of that. And you've got yourself a coffee float. Instead of a root beer float, it's a coffee float. Now that ice cream will melt down into the coffee and make the most delicious drink that you have had in a very, very long time. That one is for coffee lovers. If you're not a coffee lover, you might not like that one, but if you're like me, you're gonna love it. So there you go, and you could top that with whipped cream if you wanted to, and maybe even, a couple of the chopped up chocolate-coated coffee beans that you can find, or whatever you wanted to top it with, or just plain like that. It is delicious. So there you go. There's a quick, easy meal that you can make in less than an hour. You can have it start to finish done. Really even less than that, say 30 to 40 minutes. You can have dinner on the table a quick, easy chicken pot pie with biscuits instead of the crust, then a wonderful sun-dried tomato dressed Caesar salad, and our delicious coffee floats for dessert/drink or any time of the day. I would love to have that morning, noon, or night. Thank you for joining with me, and I will see you next time on Everyday Manna.
Thank you for watching Everyday Manna with Lisa. This program is made possible by viewers like you. Your support is continually needed to keep Christian programming on the air. Please send your best financial gift to Living Faith Television in care of Everyday Manna, P.O. Box 1867, Abingdon, Virginia 24212.